Con didn't fail to note how the other three had looked to him when Con arrived on the scene. Now, however, the dark-haired man looked more petulant than commanding. "This is a matter between the lady and ourselves." "You must be incredibly stupid," Con said, his voice deceptively calm as he addressed the young man. "For if you knew anything at all, you'd know that I'm reputed to be a crack shot, and what you've just done is grounds for a challenge at the very least, as this lady is under my protection." Visibly, the three fellows took a step back. It would have been amusing if Con weren't so furious. "Now, look here, man," the leader said, his sudden pallor indicating that he'd realized that perhaps he'd chosen the wrong lady for his attentions. "I have no quarrel with you. The lady approached us. We were trying to encourage her to return to her party." "You lie!" Georgina cried, stepping around Con to confront her accuser. "I was merely trying to get past you and you grabbed me." The young man's pallor turned to a flush of anger. "Now see here, miss," he said before he could stop himself. One look at Con had him taking a step back rather than a step forward, however. "Because nothing more happened," Con said, stepping in front of Georgina again, with a look that told her to stay put, "I will allow you to go, if you all agree to leave Bath. I cannot promise what I'll do if I happen upon you at some other venue here in the coming weeks." "I say," one of the other men said, his voice aggrieved, "that's not fair." "Shut up, Bemis," the ringleader said, his voice clipped. To Con, he said, "We'll go, though I don't think you know just who it is you're threatening." Con had to admit that the fellow had bottom. "And I could say the same to you, sir. I will assuage your curiosity and tell you that I am Coniston, and if you are at all familiar with sporting circles, you will know I did not lie when I said I am quite nifty with a pistol." A murmur passed among the three followers when they heard Con's name. The first man blinked, and he turned pale again. At this rate, Con thought, with dark amusement, he'd find himself shunned by his peers as the victim of some new fever. Still, the fellow managed to bow with enough insolence to save face. "My lord, I wish I could say it was a pleasure, but it is not. I believe you'll know my father, Lord Allenby," he said. "He too is well known by reputation. I hope that you will not come to regret this night's doings." Lord Allenby was known to be a powerful member of the Tory party, and had used his influence to see that many of the reforms championed by the Whigs were snuffed out long before they became viable. He was also reputed to have a nasty temper. Con, however, wasn't worried. "I believe that I am quite safe from your father, since I am neither weak nor powerless." Before the younger man could argue, he held up a staying hand. "We could stay here arguing all evening. Now I fear I am weary of the subject, and would ask the four of you to leave us." Though the ringleader looked as if he wished to argue, the other three soon convinced him that they would leave while they might. Before a minute had passed, Con and Georgina were alone in the corridor. He looked to ensure that there was no one else lurking about, and without ceremony pulled her to him and kissed her. Georgie had found herself battling between gratitude that Con had appeared on the scene and annoyance that he'd effectively pushed her to the side so that he might fight her battle for her. She knew well enough that some men would never see a woman's opinion as anything other than a triviality to be ignored. And she had little doubt that the young men who'd cornered her were of that ilk. However, she was still angered both by how quickly the young men did as Con said, and by how he'd assumed that she'd be grateful for his protection. Before she could voice these feelings, however, she found herself in his arms, and despite her well-formulated arguments against the wisdom of such a thing, responding with some enthusiasm to his kiss. From the moment his lips touched hers, she lost all train of thought, except perhaps to reflect while she could that this was a far different kiss from the one they'd shared that afternoon. Gone was the gentleness of their earlier embrace. This kiss was hot and consuming and carnal. As he walked her back toward the wall, he pressed her back against it, and as he thrust his tongue into her mouth, he pressed his rock-hard erection against her softness. She gave as good as she got, meeting his mouth with her own, sliding her hands beneath his coat to feel the strong muscles of his back as he held her. They went on like this for 1, maybe 2 minutes more, before she felt him become still against her. He kissed her once more on the lips and reached down to remove her hands from around his waist and took a step back.